Hi, this is Kelly from paperbeadrollers.com, and today I'm going to teach you how to make this gorgeous two-strand necklace and matching earrings out of the Daisy Buco bead. Stay tuned.
This project was inspired by a charm I received in the February Dollar Bead Box. This cute little elephant with the daisies in his belly matched a Buco bead design I'd been working on. It was perfect. Let's make one together. For this project, you'll need 9 daisy Buco beads. If you haven't seen the tutorial on how to make Buco beads, I've put a link in the description, and I'll also bring it up at the end of this video so you can jump over there and watch it when we're done. I'm also using several strands of beads from the February 2019 Dollar Bead Box. The 6mm check fire polish in matte silver strand, the 4mm check glass druck in blue luster, and the 4mm check glass druck in smoky topaz. I just love these little round drucks. They're adorable. All 3 of these and the pendant were from the February Dollar Bead Box subscription, and I've got a link down there in the description if you'd like to check it out. I'm going to use these antique silver connectors to connect my 2 beaded strands to the neck chain. These particular ones are bead landing. You will also need 4 head pins to use with these connectors. To make the paper beads a bit more fancy, I'm going to cap off the ends with these silver bead caps. And of course, we're using the antique silver elephant charm. I chose the paper for the core of the Buco beads to match the blue beads, and the pattern of the paper bead matches the pattern in the elephant's belly, so that pulls the traditional and paper elements in this piece together. You'll also need a bit of silver chain. I chose a very small link, simple chain for my project, but you can get as blingy as you want with this. I think this design would look great with a more sophisticated chain as well. You will also need some 20-gauge silver wire. As for tools, you need some wire cutters, jewelry pliers, and the 1.5mm one-step looper tool. Now I'm also going to use my 3mm looper tool for under my connectors, but it's not required. You can get away with just the 1.5 if that's what you have. If you prefer to make loops yourself, you won't need the looper tool at all. I just prefer to use it for consistency. I'll use Aileene's original tacky glue to adhere the bead caps to the paper beads. You'll also need a jump ring for the elephant pendant. Let's get started. First, I'm going to adhere the bead caps to the Buco beads with the tacky glue. Now this is a fairly simple thing to do. I'm going to take off the lid and use a bamboo skewer to apply the glue, just to get a little more control. Once the bead is covered, you can put the cap on. I like to sit the beads up on end if I can, but honestly, this glue is so tacky that I've found I can gently lay the beads down and the caps will stay in place. After a few minutes, the glue will be tacky enough that you can handle the beads and put the caps on the other sides. I'm going to finish these up off camera, and while they're drying, we'll continue on with the first chain in this necklace. I have the first chain design set up on my beadboard for you. We'll have the connectors here at the top and the bead groupings with about 1.5 inches of chain in between each grouping. First, we'll put the bead groupings on wire. Grab your 20-gauge wire, your wire clippers, and your looper tool. I'm going to cut 9 pieces of wire, 1 for each grouping, about 1.5 inches long. Next, make a loop at the end of the wire. I'll use my looper tool, but you can do the loop manually if you'd prefer. Remember to leave your loops slightly open so that we can connect the chain later. String your beads onto the wire. When you use the looper tool, you want to get it close to the bead so that you don't have empty room on your wire, but don't put it right up against the bead or you might crack it. I have done that several times. If it helps, you can hold the end with your pliers to keep it in place. And there's our first one. I'm going to put all of these groupings together off camera, and then we'll move on to adding the chain. Now I need to cut my chain pieces. We're looking at about 1.5 inches for each piece. I'm just going to cut the chain with my clippers. We'll need about 8 sections of chain. Now we're ready to connect the bead groupings. If you use the looper tool, you might have to open your loops a bit to get the chain on. Just slip it on and close up your loop nice and tight. Then we'll move to the other side. And that's it. You just connect each grouping the same way. I'm going to go connect all of my groupings with the chain, and I'll be right back. Our first chain is finished. I'll lay it out on the beadboard so we can see how it looks. This will be a nice subtle complement to our bulkier second chain. Now I have the second chain design laid out. You can see that this chain has a lot more going on. The intervals are different, there's more beads, there's just a lot more here. Since you've already seen the techniques with the wire and the chain, I'm going to put this together off camera, and then when I'm done, we'll talk about the pendant area. Now let's prep the wire that's going to hang the pendant. I'm going to cut this wire a little bit longer than these 4 beads need because I do want a little bit of play in this wire. I'm looping my first end and then stringing the beads. Instead of coming right up to my beads with the loop, I'm going to back off a little bit to give it some room. And now I'm going to give this wire a little bit of a bend because I want my elephant charm to stay on this piece of wire. If the wire is straight, the weight of the pendant is going to force it to one side or the other of the wire. It'll constantly be sliding around. By putting this little bend in, we'll keep it centered. And now we're ready to attach our chain, just like we did on the first section. I'm going to do that off camera, and then we'll move on to attaching our connectors. Now that both chains are ready, we can connect them to the connectors. I realized for this one, I'm going to need to use my larger one-step looper tool. With the 1.5 millimeter, there just wasn't a lot of good movement once I got both chains in the loop, so I decided to go a little bit larger. We're going to put a head pin on each side of the connector to connect the chains, and to make it look pretty, we'll put a blue druck on the end. Now I'll loop the head pin on the outside of the connector. The connectors are ready, so we can just put on the chains and close the loops. Make sure that all 3 loops are closed so the chain doesn't slip off. And I've already done the other side, so now we have our double chain. To finish this off, I'm going to put a 13-inch length of chain that will go around the neck. I am not even going to put a clasp on this necklace. It's probably a personal preference, but when I wear longer necklaces, I never open the clasp. I just put it on over my head. If you'd like to, you can cut this length of chain in half and put a clasp on, but I'm not going to do that on mine. Since I used the 3mm looper, there is plenty of room for this chain. If you used a smaller loop, you might want to use a jump ring to connect them, just to give it a little bit of flex and swing. The only thing left to do is to add our adorable little elephant pendant. I love how the lighter chain wraps around the larger chain on this necklace. The different intervals make it a very interesting piece. I'm using a 10mm jump ring, which is a bit large, but the elephant's trunk comes up higher than his head, so I need a larger gap between him and the necklace. I'll just open it up a little bit and slide it onto our bent wire. And now just close it back up. If you're new to this channel and you like this tutorial, please hit that subscribe button so that you'll get to see more tutorials like this one. As promised, you can click on this video right here to see how I made the Buco paper beads for this necklace. Also, I did a quick bonus video on how to make earrings to match this necklace, which you can click on here. I am loving how this turned out, and I hope you do too. Let me know in the comments. See you next time.